Good morning. It's about 8:30 on the 19th of February. Yeah. 19th of February is fairly significant. It's my daughter's birthday. And she's kind of, it's got to that age where she's half my age, which is weird. So, when I was her age, I was all, she's living away from home now. I'd been living away from home for a long time, for about 8 years. So yeah, like, what a very different set of life experiences someone you know really well can have. So, happy birthday, India. It wasn't a pause that I'd forgotten your name, it was I'm walking down some really muddy steps. So yeah, so that's a cool thing. Hope you have a good day. So yeah. And it's 8:30 in the morning. And I just got to that point this morning where it's sort of like, look, I need to go out and film an episode just for me and my digital diary, wandering about the woods while on furlough, still on furlough. So it looks like I'm going to make it to like almost a year of being on furlough. So, wow. Whereas there's other people that I know, like Misanthropic Gods over in America, whose work as an EMT means that he hasn't really had any time off in the last year. His workload's gone up. So if you've been working and making sure things run, or people can get food, or keeping law and order organised, or just doing what you're doing, thank you very much. This is going to be a year that we remember. So the last couple of days I've just been tidying, which sounds like a really boring waste of your time, but to be honest, I think it's interesting that, especially if you're a pack rat like me, when you do tidy, when you've got lots of stuff, you suddenly realise all the resources you've got for doing things, or stuff you'd set aside for doing other stuff, is now there and badgering you. And so bear that thought in mind. That's important. That's an important doohickey. So suddenly resources are available. And then I was watching a really good bit by Henry Rollins about care of vinyl, which I recommend you go and check out. Very easy to search for. I might even put a link underneath here, which I really, really liked. It was just like, look, this is how you do it, and your records will survive. And while I was watching him do that, it was just like, yeah, I've got a record collection. I really should start listening to some of that, given that I've collected a whole bunch of records. And it was so I sorted out all my records, and then found out I had a bunch of plastic sleeves for all the records to go in, so that they could be stored without grinding up against each other and wearing off the carefully put together artwork on the outside. Sorted that out. Picked out a bunch of records that I most wanted to listen to again. Sorted that out. And then autoplay kicks in. And Henry Rollins is talking about how he listens to vinyl, and the fact that he can't trust people to just listen to it with him. So he generally ends up listening to his records alone. So, I was going, I'm just kind of a solitary person by default, especially during lockdown. It's just like, what would that be like to get to just sit in Henry Rollins' record room, where he's got thousands of records, all carefully selected, all carefully thought about, and, catalogued and stuff like that. And then I looked at my record collection, and it's not catalogued. It just isn't. I should really try and sort them by genre, because that seems to be the most sensible thing to organise them by. And the amount of money people are willing to spend on the perfect setup and the perfect speakers and the whole aspect of record collecting, which I like. I've got some pretty unusual records. I've got some pretty good limited edition stuff that I like. I've got some standard LPs. I've got LPs that are first pressings but are in, shot condition. So one of the things that will be happening on Team Human, possibly today, is that I'm gonna try and pass on the record listening experience to people that don't want to collect records but like music. I mean, you can like music. I mean, music's available to you. I dare say there's scarcely a relatively famous record anywhere that isn't either on YouTube or, you know, accessible in some other way. So yeah, you know, and the point of the new show, which the working title is Vinyl Rats, because I don't spend gigantic amounts of money on records. I generally tend to go to the bargain bins, look around for stuff I've heard. Very rarely will I buy a brand new record. Sometimes the two cross over and I get brand new records for sale prices. That occurs. Or I get discontinued records, which I think somebody committed this to vinyl. I should really like have an explore of this. And if all I've got to shell out is £1 or £2, I'm willing to give it a spin, which makes my record hunts a bit more interesting, you know. I generally only allow myself about £20 on any given record hunt, which means that I could buy a record and a single, maybe, on a record hunt, but where's the fun in that? So I'll go to record shops that sell second-hand vinyl and see if I can find something either that I know I like or is so cheap that I can afford to try it out. So I generally come back with a carrier bag full of records and I do my thing. Sit down and listen to it, ideally. But I realised that because the studio room was such a mess, it was very difficult to actually just sit down and listen to records. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a studio vid, because the studio's been updated. So where I edit, where I do the audio shows, where I record extra bits, and where I intend to do some how-to screenshot videos, because how to do stuff is usually handled very badly on YouTube. So expect those coming up soon. But the studio vid will actually show, you know, my record collection and stuff like that. I'll attempt to demonstrate some of the records that I'll be playing on the Vinyl Rats thing. So Vinyl Rats is just literally gonna be a reasonably good record setup, reasonably good speakers and recording quality. You know, I'll be listening on headphones quietly with the mics off, and we'll just listen to an album that you may have heard of. You know, I've got things like Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds, which is really good, which I've listened to since I was tiny, because it came out in 1972. I thought it might be interesting to listen to all of Tubular Bells, given that people only ever hear like 2 or 3 minutes of it if they watch The Exorcist. I've got the Beatles' White Album, an original pressing, you know, and the album that we're starting off with is the Ramones' first album, and I can't remember where I got it from. It was either an ex-girlfriend's audiophile dad, or it was me lucking into it and just buying it, not knowing what it was. But this is, as far as I can tell, an original pressing from 1976. It's in mint condition. I don't know where I got it from. Could have been a record shop, could have been just something I hoiked out. And yeah, so stuff that maybe it's popular, maybe it's not, you know. But it was just the way Henry Rollins was talking about, you know, oh, nobody ever just sits and listens to records anymore, they all download it. So this is like the anti-iPod, if you like. So you get the benefits a little bit if you listen to it, of course. Not many people listen to Team Human, but Mixcloud, and then search Team Human. If you see a picture of planet Earth, you know you found the right one. So yeah, but it's not encouraging you to have a record collection, it's me sharing my record collection kind of thing. So there's quite a lot of stuff. I mean, I'd quite like to do a whole session, although it would be a good 3 or 4 hours to play the whole of the 1974, I want to say, recording of The Hobbit on Argus Records, read by Nicole Williamson, I think. So yeah, I'd like to play that for you. And the promise is, I won't speak for more than 5 minutes at a time, and I won't interrupt the record, but between each side, I'll attempt to sort of add something to it so you can skip over it and just listen to the record if you want. But I just thought, you know, Rollins was right. You know, vinyl is provably the music format with currently the best longevity. You know, can you imagine running a hard drive for 50 years? Can you imagine having a CD that's 50 years old? You know, sort of in the future. I mean, CDs came in the 80s, probably about 85 when they started becoming more prevalent than tapes. No, probably later than that. CDs were still a new thing in the UK in about 1987. So there, so 1987 was when I got my first CD. And I bet that CD's properly screwed up and knackered by now and skips all over the place, even if I did still own it. I remember it was the hits of Jerry Lee Lewis. Purely because I didn't have any CDs and I was buying a CD player, and this was one of the cheap ways to get a CD on board. So yeah, interesting stuff. So, Vinyl Rats, you know, so like a new thing, I'm trying it out. If you do get a chance to sort of sit down and listen, and we'll be playing the Ramones' first album. It's on a very nice record, very little in the way of skips. I've given it a bit of a clean, but it was in kind of mint condition when I got it. So yeah, and some of the records might not be in mint condition. For instance, I can't really afford a mint condition original pressing of the White Album, and I don't really want to spend 20 quid getting it. There are records I'll spend 20 quid on, you know. Another record that I'm really tempted to play is There Will Be No Intermission by Amanda Palmer, which is a double album, which was the tour she was on, which I bought when attending a gig, thanks to my daughter, who pointed out the gig and said we should go. And then we went. So yeah, so I might play all of that, which will mean after every side I'll probably say a few things about it or a few things about the band, but relevant stuff. You know, maybe read some of the liner notes, talk about the container or whatever. Maybe there will be an accompanying but very short video of everything that's in, you know, the record, or the back and the front, and, you know, any booklets that come with it. I love records that come with booklets. I've got a few albums that people might not have. There's a collection of, well, 2 LP collections of Manchester punk that got put together by the bloke who sadly passed away now, but the bloke who used to run Vinyl Revival in Manchester. You know, so I've got some unusual stuff which I will attempt to play to you, and I've got a few 10 inches which will probably be shorter recordings, and I'm putting it on Mixcloud because that's the only place where, if say 10,000 people listen to it, the artist will get some money. So you can help contribute by listening to that artist, or at least the artist's record label getting paid. So yeah, ooh, it's time to do the unusual thing. Let me risk slipping over in the mud. So yeah, so that's going to be a new show that's come about and been made possible by the tidying. It's like the whole thing I was musing on when I came out was organising your resources. So yeah. So there's that. The furlough goeth on. I haven't yeah, so interesting times ahead, at least for me. And that's the way you should approach media, I think. You know, if you're doing it as a job, you've got to think the audience. If you're doing it to amuse yourself and hopefully acquire some audience, then you should do it for the audience. Yeah, we haven't been out here in a while because it's not been possible. So yeah, let's take a wander up to that waterfall that we haven't been to in a while because the weather's been so horrendous. You know, it is still muddy, but when we go back I'll show you, but the river has reshaped itself. So yeah, I found out the secret to tidying, Well, there are a few secrets to tidying. Secret number one: put everything in boxes where it's to do with the other stuff. Okay, so if you've got, like me, camera equipment, put it all in a big crate. And if it's little bits, put them all into all the little bits into small boxes, and all the big bits into the big crate. Sounds stupid and simple, I know, but it has revolutionized my tidying. Section 2 is be honest about whether you're ever going to use a piece of equipment again. Be honest with yourself, because basically, you know, if all you're going to do is drag this from place to place, and you're never going to use it. So certain stuff can go in the bin, you know, or down to a charity shop. But generally speaking, if I've owned it for a number of years and it's been bashed about in big junk boxes for years, it's probably not in any kind of condition to be passed on. Oh yeah, I forgot about how muddy it is down here. Yeah, so here's what we're going to do. So yeah, so organising my stuff basically made a whole new possibility of shows. But I noticed you know, some resources, if you lose them, you tend to buy again, which is aggravating as anything. To know that you have a thing but you've lost it is really, really annoying. So yeah. So, I forgot about this bit. This is the bit where I fall down all the time. Look. Almost every single slip up, fall over and stuff. Like, look, if you look closely, you can see that there are scuff marks where other people have fallen over. So that's not the Ranger way. If you know, if there is a shattered edge of cliff, and which has clearly fallen away, and you're aware that there are bodies below you on the beach, where people have gone up to the edge of the cliff, and the cliff has given way underneath them, a ranger does not go to the edge of the cliff. I mean, maybe I'm being a bit more dramatic than it actually requires, but if you can see someone's made the same mistake, don't do what they do. 5 people fallen down this cliff. Shall I walk up to the edge and see where they are? Yes, do that. But yeah, let's not do that. Yes, there's plenty of places that I can still fall over here. So, yeah, look. All sorts of scuff marks. Where there's a scuff mark, it's slippery. So we're not going via the scuff marks. If you're aware that somebody is about to have an accident similar to the, you know, the ones that you've already had, you know, then you get the rest. So yeah. I don't really want to get covered in mud. Plan your route accordingly. Yeah. Huh? Perfect looking golf ball from the golf. Somebody really got off from the golf course with that one. That's got to have been a high iron or high not really doing this very well. Right, yeah. So yeah. So in amongst all the resources that I found in my house that I'd sort of forgotten about that I had, were just tons of stuff, tons of writing pads, tons of pens and Sharpies and electronics bits that I've been fiddling with and then didn't put away. So and that's how your stuff gets broken. So, you know, I've lost a few bits and pieces, a few things got broken, but, you know, let's be fair, I wasn't really using them at the time. So yeah. So, for the first time in many months, we're down by the waterfall. Yeah, I haven't been down this way a while, but there's a reason for that. Whew. There's still people coming down here regularly, so I think people are, the footprints are adults and dogs and stuff. So, can't have been that treacherous, but it is pretty treacherous. Yeah. So if you do a mad level tidy up, if you are on furlough or you're not, and you've got a day off and you're looking at your stuff and think, I can't find any of this shit, then having a good old tidy up and just piling stuff together, all the notepads in one box, all the pens in another, all your clothes sorted out and separated away, all your electronics components and soldering irons, and a toolbox is a good thing to have, so it keeps all your tools together. Then you get to use those resources, and you don't have to go, oh, I'll have to buy some more drill bits, or I've got to buy some more stuff. It just helps. It just means that you can do more stuff when you desire to do the stuff. So given that my record deck and my record collection are more accessible now that I've had a good tidy up, I'm going to start playing records. And if you can think of an album that you would say, yeah, other people should listen to this, or if you were buying records, this should be on your list of records to buy. Can't go down that way. Then it's get in touch. I mean, there are records that I don't have that I think would be worth a play. Just off the top of my head, something like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band should be a record that you get to listen to. I was pointing the camera away then. But yeah, and also I'd like to get hold of a copy of King Crimson's In the Court of the Crimson King. I think that would be a good record to sit down and listen to and give it some attention. So, back to, I've meandered a bit, but back to the proposed, we came out to see the waterfall. There it is. I'm not going up there. It is treacherous out here. And I know that the bit going up to the waterfall, where you draw level with the waterfall, is very, very slippy. So I'm not doing it. Maybe in the spring on a hot day when the mud's had a chance to dry out a bit, but it has been raining for a couple of days. So yeah, there are a few records I would like to put on the turntable and give people the chance to listen to in their entirety without interruption, without skipping ahead, although you could theoretically skip ahead if it was a recorded program, but the experience is, the last couple of days I've sat down and actually listened to an album all the way through, and it's a different experience. So it's kind of like being led into a dark cave by an elder of the tribe, which I guess I am now. I'm older than most elders would be in the Stone Age, and this avatar leading you to something good, or to overcoming your resistance, or where you learn something. So that's why we're going to start off with the Ramones. The whole idea of, music's changed, I get that, but I'll do 6 records so that you've got, see what I mean? I'll do 6 records, and then this is one of those times when, if you are going to listen to it, and I'll put a link when I upload this to the first one on Mixcloud. So I'm gonna talk about the record. There'll be a teeny tiny video of said record, the physicality of it. Maybe a little bit of video of the record spinning, the label, the insert, if there is one, the the cover, the back cover, and then the rest of it, like who the band are, what they did, other things to listen to from them, are will be on the Mixcloud audio. So it's Yeah. So we're almost going back to what people... sorry, this is a difficult bit. What people in the 60s called mixed media, which was very exciting at the time. People like Andy Warhol and the Velvet Underground making films and stuff like that. So we get to be part of that. This is kind of a mixed media thing. This is listen to the album as a shamanic exercise. You know, listen to it on headphones. Get yourself into a place where you can quietly listen to it without interruption. And then you will listen to it without interruption, and then you'll get some extra info, you know, at half time when I physically turn over the record. You'll hear the pops and the whistles. So it's a bit like, or it could be like, having a record collection without all the attendant hassle. They weigh a ton, you know. If each record is 200 grams and you've got, you know, 200 records, that's, whoop. This is why I didn't come down here in the first place. Well, so I didn't listen to my own advice. I was not a ranger. I did not see the nightmare and sidestep it. Whoa. But I didn't fall over, so you are disappointed, I can tell. So yeah, so listen to it on headphones in the dark. You know, if you want to. This could be a going to bed ritual where I will listen to a classic album, or an album that someone else thinks is classic. And you can suggest albums too, if I get a chance to get them. They might go into a list for a bit, but that's how it is. So yeah. So I'm pretty sure that the first Vinyl Rats audio show and the first Vinyl Rats you know, record video, a little bit of it going round, good quality shots of the back and front cover that you can look at, you know, a little bit of information about the record, why it's made it into the collection and stuff like that. So I should try and do lots of different genres, but I'm not going to play anything that's crap. Okay, so it'll be a good record. It might not be your cup of tea, but at least it's a bit like Sonic Sunday. The next show will be something completely different. So yeah, I'm hoping that all makes sense. And I will, if you are part of the Rangers Discord, then you know, the first episode's going to be linked in that, as well as the studio, so all your audio files can go, you know. Oh, look at that. But essentially the entire Vinyl Rat setup is going to be stuff that was given to me or stuff that I got second hand. I think the only things new in the studio actually that I've bought brand new are probably the scissor stands for the microphones, because I had no idea where you might get second-hand ones of those, or if you'd even want them, and the keyboard. Even the mouse is second-hand. The router that I use to connect it all up is second-hand. I don't think I've ever bought a Cat5 cable. They've always come along with other stuff. So yeah. So if you want to dip your producing ore into the water, and you have any suggestions for how it might be better, how it could be improved, do say. Bearing in mind that there's no graphic EQ going into the mixing desk from the record player. The record is as it sounds. I may well have cleaned it, which is a good idea, but it is the record. It's not from a CD, it's not downloaded. A lot of the time it's not a reprint. I very rarely buy reissue records. I buy new records that have just come out, but I don't buy reissues. And I won't be playing compilations. These are albums. The person that put together the album, it might not be the main artist, it might not be the singer, you know, put it in that order for a reason. Now some of the reasons are they generally play a ballad at the end of each record side on vinyl, and the reason for that is the dynamic range drops because the tension in the groove is higher, so you can't do as many gigantic guitar sounds in the center of a record near the end as you can in the outer ring. That's just physics and the way vinyl records work. And when, you know, rock and roll started producing 12-inch modern style LPs, that's you know, they kind of had to take advantage of that, so a lot of big bands actually started doing some ballads at the end of each side. But we're not just going to be playing rock and roll, although there's quite a bunch of choices, and I will put my first 6 records out there on for you to take a look at, and you can pick which, you know, if I get some responses or some comments or some, you know, feedback, as you know, whether it's on Team Human or whether it's on YouTube on Urban Agoge, and if I get some feedback saying yes, I'd like to listen to that record in the way it was meant to be listened to, you know, on my own in the dark, with a little bit of feedback from somebody that can listen to the record and not say anything until you're actually turning over the side. Because I believe that if you were in someone's attic or a room over a garage, or the weird uncle that lives in a cabin out in the woods that just happens to have a record player and no TV, that's the sort of thing I want to get across to you. You know, this sort of, I want to be the avatar of your ability to experience this record, you know, as is. And I've got a lot of first pressings, but because my dad gave me a very, very good record collection that he didn't want anymore. So yeah, you don't really collect records in as much as you know, agree to take stewardship of them. So yeah, so I want to give you the vinyl experience, pops, cracks, you know, and all, you know, everything that, you know, even if there's, you know, if I listen to a record and it's got a scratch on it and it won't play, it won't get played. So yeah, you know, my mum's record collection when she passed on, then I've also got that. So there's some Al Stewart and Joni Mitchell and stuff like that, and quite a few Beatles albums. So yeah, the idea is to, you know, do something that allows you to sort of think, well, do I really want to collect vinyl? Do you know, are vinyl records worth having? And it's a bit of a solitary experience, it has to be said. But you know, we're going to work through it. So yeah, so that's it for today. I'll go back to more scripted video tomorrow, but today is the day when I create quite a bit of stuff. So hopefully you'll get to experience that. So there'll be at least, I should imagine, 3 videos, some of which won't make sense. Well, one of which at least won't make sense, because, you know, it's just going to be me talking about the record for a couple of minutes, and then it's just going to be like a placeholder, like here is the visuals of owning the record, or what the record might look like. So yeah, hope you enjoy that. Yeah, end greed, end poverty, end hate, or we all die. We will, but we might as well enjoy ourselves in the meantime. And if it's got to be on a, you know, a super long-lived format like vinyl, which is making a massive comeback, and people are getting into it, and maybe you know, a few bits to look for on a record player, what sort of record player it might be worth getting. So yeah, thanks for watching, and do take care, and happy birthday, India.